Hello and welcome again to Nottingham. With me today I have Dr. Andreas Andreopoulos, who is the reader in Orthodox theology in the University of Winchester. But yesterday was a very special day in Dr. Andreopoulos' life because he was ordained a deacon in the Orthodox Church. So it's a great pleasure to have him with us here today. Welcome, Andreas.
Thank you, Tom.
And the very obvious question to ask you is, since the word deacon has been used for the 2,000 years of Christianity, and it is one of the key ministries, and one of the key parts of the priesthood, what does it mean to be a deacon?
I think the first question is, what does it mean to be a priest? And there are various levels of answers to this question. As you know very well, we're all endowed with the royal priesthood. Every human being to some extent is a priest. Every human being is an image of Christ. We are all made in the image and likeness of God. But of course, examining a little further the layers of what the church is and what the church does, and how can we understand or how can we define the presence of God in the world, we discern different levels of this priesthood. So the diaconate is considered the lower of the major orders of clergy in the Orthodox Church, and I believe in most Western churches as well. Now the word deacon, diakonos, really means to the servant, the person who just serves, the helper. And it is, strangely perhaps, although it's, as I said, one of the minor, although the diaconate refers to the lower of the major clergy orders, it's the one that we find earlier than the office of the presbyter, the priest, or the bishop in biblical times. And this is for practical reasons. We hear of the deacons, of the 7 deacons who were ordained to help with the distribution of food, of the Eucharist, of the agapes, of, once again, of that which defined the church. To fast forward in time, not much has changed. The deacon is still somebody who helps in the altar, in the table of the Lord. In some practical ways, the deacon may be said to be the eyes and the hands of the bishop or the priest. But in terms of what that means, what that feels like, and you know very well that this is a very fresh experience for me. I have been a deacon for one day only. It is still somebody who serves at the altar, somebody who comes into direct contact with the mystery itself. I expect we may come across this several times in our discussions, but in Greek, the word sacrament and the word mystery are the same word. So a deacon is somebody who is present at the mystery itself, where the mystery itself is happening. And something that is seen in the Greek tradition especially for the major ranks of clergy, for the 3 major ranks of a deacon, priest and bishop, is that people kiss their hand, not as a recognition of who they are, of how worthy they may be personally, but as a recognition of the assistance that the deacon provides, the order that the priest, or the guidance that the bishop provides in exactly what defines the church once more, in the table of the Lord. Now, it's a strange thing that in other traditions, such as in the Russian or the Romanian and the Ethiopian, priests bless people outside the Eucharist. You meet a Russian priest on the street, you say, "Bless, Father," and the priest usually gives a blessing. In the Greek tradition, this doesn't happen very often. A priest doesn't really bless outside the liturgical context. So the only recognition of the liturgical role outside the Eucharistic gathering is just the honor to the hand. And this is something that involves everyone who lays their own hands on the altar, on the table of the Lord. So at an experiential level, this is what I would start with.
Can I ask you a question from a Western perspective? In Westerners, there are two types of deacons. There are deacons who are just passing through the diaconate on the way to the priesthood, and they spend from 6 months, maybe a year as deacons, and then they become presbyters. And then in more recent years, there have been people who have been ordained as deacons and they remain as deacons. Does that happen in the Orthodox Church, or what's the process in the Orthodox Church?
In most parts of the Orthodox Church, the situation is very similar to that of the West. Rarely do we find deacons who are expected to, shall we say, stay deacons, to serve as deacons for a long time. This tends to happen a little more in the Russian tradition rather than in the Greek or the Romanian or the Syrian and so on. It happens a lot more in the Coptic, in the Egyptian tradition, which uses many deacons and subdeacons, many of them serving as deacons for many years or for the rest of their life. But for most of the Orthodox tradition, it is as it is in the Western tradition.
So you yourself ordained a deacon just yesterday, and you're going to be ordained a priest in a few months or maybe a year's time.
This is the expectation because of...
with the help of God.
With the help of God and the blessing of the Eucharistic community. But for every ordination like this to the diaconate or to the priesthood or to the episcopacy, there is always a practical reason for this, an answer to a real pastoral problem. The diaconate or the priesthood or the episcopacy are not awards to be given to worthy people or to people who are more holy or anything like that.
In the Latin tradition, we have a lovely play on words. Non honor sed onus. Not an honor, but a weight.
It is exactly that. And the most frequent congratulatory note that I receive from most people is "Kalli dynami," may you be strong in what you're about to face.
Oh, well. There are many people who will have seen deacons performing in the Western liturgy, where the deacon reads the gospel, then the deacon helps, just stands by during the liturgy of the Eucharist, and then administers the chalice. How does that work in the Greek liturgy?
Many things are surprisingly similar between East and West because we look back to the same roots. So what you just mentioned is true to a great extent in the East as well. What I see in Eastern liturgy, because I'm more familiar with it, is that you can read hierarchy, you can read the way the clergy functions, you can read the way that different clergymen and laity perform their duties in a way very similar to the hierarchies of Dionysius. What does that mean? That every different rung in the ladder, if we use the metaphor of the ladder to heaven, the climax or the hierarchies of Dionysius, every step in this hierarchy connects with the one below and leads to the one above. So the deacon serves very visibly in the Orthodox liturgy as somebody who directs the prayers of the people, who tells them it is now time to pray, it is now time to start another round of petitions, another round of requests, and it's also time for us to prepare for something that is going to happen. And the deacon presents the chalice, as in the Western tradition, to the people, saying, it's time, we'll do that now. So there's, you can see that there is a seamless connection, or hopefully seamless connection between God and everything in creation, and the deacon is one part of this connection, or more accurately, perhaps one ring in this chain.
Andreas, as you begin your ministry as a deacon, may you be strong.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today.